I chose my best friend's 15-year-old son over my husband, and I'm so much happier with him. My best friend and I were inseparable since college, so when she got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, I was there for everything. She was a single mom with a 15-year-old son named Ethan, and the night before she died, she made me promise he wouldn't end up in prison one day. 3 weeks after the funeral, I brought Ethan home. My husband saw him with his duffel bag and immediately asked, "This is temporary, right?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Yes, he's staying until he grows up and moves out on his own." My husband's face went red. He said he didn't sign up to raise someone else's kid for the next decade. I told him I made a promise and I wasn't breaking it. Ethan barely came out of the guest room that first week. He wasn't eating or sleeping, just staring at the wall. One night I heard crying from his room and I found him sobbing on the floor. I held him and told him we'd figure it out together. When I came back to bed, my husband said, "You're being ridiculous. The kid needs to cope on his own." 2 weeks in, Ethan put up a framed photo of his mom in his room. My husband saw it and told Ethan, "Put that thing in a drawer. Nobody wants to see a dead woman's face every time they walk past your room." Ethan's expression went blank. He took it down without a word. After that, Ethan stopped coming out for meals. He'd wait until we were asleep and sneak into the kitchen. I started bringing dinner to his room. Then the comments got worse. My husband made jokes about Ethan's mom in front of him, saying things like, "Well, at least your mom doesn't have to deal with teenage attitude anymore," and "Too bad she didn't plan better for this situation." Every time, Ethan shut down more. One afternoon, I came home and found my husband on the phone saying, "I can't stand this kid. He walks around here like some pathetic charity case, acting like we're supposed to feel sorry for him. Honestly, I wish he'd just disappear. How old do they have to be to get emancipated?" Ethan's door was cracked, and I knew he'd heard everything. A couple months in, my husband sat me down and said, "We need to talk about other options for him. Group homes, foster families, people who are trained for this." I said, "Absolutely not," and he snapped, "So you're choosing some random kid over your own husband?" I said, "Ethan isn't some random kid. He's family." My husband laughed and said, "He's not your family. You barely know him." Everything exploded that night. Ethan was doing dishes and dropped a plate. It shattered, and my husband stormed in screaming, "Are you kidding me? You're so careless. This is exactly why I didn't want you here." Ethan was on his knees picking up pieces, saying, I'm sorry, it was an accident." But my husband wouldn't stop. He said, "You break everything you touch. Your mom broke our entire lives by dumping you on us, and now we're stuck with you." Ethan looked up with tears streaming and said, "I didn't ask for any of this." My husband laughed this cold, bitter laugh and said, "Yeah, well, neither did we. At least your mom got out of this nightmare. She doesn't have to deal with you anymore. We're the ones stuck here suffering through it." Ethan started sobbing, and my husband said, "Stop being such a baby. Maybe if you weren't such a burden, people would actually want you around." I'd been in the doorway, and I completely lost it. I stepped between them and screamed, "Get away from him. You're disgusting." My husband locked eyes with me and said, "Oh, come on. I'm just upset about the plate." I said, "You just told a grieving child his dead mother was lucky she didn't have to deal with him. Get out of this house right now." He said, "This is my house too." I said, "Not anymore. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police." He stared at me in shock, and I said, "I want a divorce. I'm done." He started backtracking. "I didn't mean it like that. I'm just stressed." I helped Ethan stand and said, "You have 1 hour to pack and get out." He said, "So you're seriously choosing him over me?" I said, "Yes, absolutely. Every single time, without question. Ethan is more family than you ever were." He stood there trying to find words, then grabbed his keys and left. The house went silent. Ethan stood in the kitchen looking shell-shocked. He asked if I really just kicked out my husband because of him. I sat him down and told him I kicked my husband out because of what he said, because anyone who could say that wasn't someone I wanted in my life. His mom was my best friend, and that made him my family. And I have a son who needs me. He broke down crying and I held him. Things got better after that. Ethan started coming out of his room more, eating with me, asking if friends could come over. One afternoon he was on the couch and asked if his friend could come over to our place. Then he said, "Thanks, Mom," like he'd been saying it forever. I had to leave the room because I was crying.